Great. All right. Um, Thank you all so much for having us. I look forward to getting a chance to interact with you all at least once a year and to bring our student scholarship recipients. This is a real treat, a highlight for me. And we really do appreciate y'all's support. It makes a big difference for our students, and it really allows us to continue our hands-on education program. Um, I think I know a lot of y'all. For those of you all that don't know me, I've got a little bit in here about who I am. But as was said, I'm Dr. Aaron Fox. My students call me Dr. Fox, professor at Cal Poly Pomona. Um, Many of you all have come out to campus. We got a chance to tour y'all around last year. I think we did it before the pandemic as well. We no longer have the pointy building. It's now like the president is in this spaceship looking building. Anyways, the horses are still there. Y'all come out whenever you want. I'm happy to show you around. Um, as was said, I primarily focus and teach urban agriculture. So I teach classes on small scale farming. I teach a farmer's market class. I'm currently teaching a culinary produce class where students have to walk into a farmer's market and be able to identify everything. There's a farm to table class, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So I started at Cal Poly Pomona in 2015. That's actually important for today's talk, primarily because other professors in my department at Cal Poly Pomona were almost all hired in 1980. Why that's important is because if you go 35 years later from 1980, that's 2015. So everybody retired the moment I got there. So again, this will be important to today's talk. So in 2015, my daughter was born. Now I have two kids. I apologize for being a little late tonight. I had to rush down to Irvine and drop them off with my mother-in-law, come back up here. I have to go back there. So if I leave a little early tonight, I apologize. So yeah, lots happened. And again, I honestly this is one of the highlights of my year, is coming to this event and getting a chance to interact with y'all. And I'm glad to be back here in person. I can't remember if this is the first time I've been back in person or not. Guess I need to get closer to the computer, maybe. Okay. So last year we had kind of this event at our house. Y'all came out. We got a chance to show y'all our greenhouses and our coffee orchard. Philip, who showed you around the coffee, is finishing up his master's degree right now. The coffee's in pretty good shape. We were hoping to get some enough of a yield off of it this year to roast it, but didn't quite work out. So hopefully next year. And last year, I'll be honest that like I was a little nervous about showing folks everything because there's a lot of really good things happening at Cal Poly Pomona, primarily our students. But there's also a lot of things that we need to work on. And y'all kind of saw that last year, that like, some things are in a little bit rough shape. Some things are in good shape. Some things need some work. So a little bit of what my talk will be about today, kind of showcases that as well. There's good, bad, and ugly at Cal Poly Pomona. So just some quick updates. We're continuing to do awesome innovative projects. Y'all learned about the coffee project last year. We're continuing to do organic tomato breeding trials. That's with Dr. Saxena. Daniel alluded to the project that he's leading, looking at strawberry diseases in Southern California, primarily on organic farms. We're also starting to look into agrivoltaics, which is essentially solar panels and then farming underneath them. So there's a lot of need for land in Southern California for everything from housing to energy. And so we really have to start thinking about how can we kind of start stacking these functions. So hopefully next time y'all come out to Cal Poly Pomona, you'll see we'll be growing crops underneath solar panels for an agrivoltaic project. We also hired a new tenure track professor. Hopefully I'll get a chance to bring him around next time. This is Dr. Ravi Shankar. His background and expertise is in controlled environment agriculture, and in fact, his degrees are all in mechanical engineering. He's been working for the horticulture department at North Carolina State University for the past 5 years. So he'll be able to bring a lot of innovation and technology and maybe a different way of thinking about crop production to our campus. We've also started doing a more concerted effort to connect our farm to our students, not just plant science students, but everyone on campus. Our campus dining is independently run, so that provides some opportunity for us to be creative. And we're starting to work with campus dining so that they're primarily buying their fruits and vegetables from us, from our farm. Been a little challenging, but it's been a lot of fun as well. And then one of the projects that I've been spending a lot of my time on is what we're calling Farm to Pantry. Unfortunately, a lot of students at Cal Poly Pomona are juggling a lot. A lot of them are struggling. Prior to the pandemic, there was a survey done, and about 40% of students throughout the California State University system are dealing with some degree of food insecurity. And now we're estimating at Cal Poly Pomona it's over 50%. So that means that our students do not necessarily know where their next meal is going to come from. They may not be able to afford enough food to get through the week. And that's a little crazy because we have 140 acres of farmland on campus, and we're producing tons of fruits and vegetables. So what I've been trying to do is connect that food production to address this issue. It's honestly challenging. Our campus farm has to generate revenue to function and survive and exist. So when we first said, can we donate? They said we can't really give things away for free. So we've started looking for donors and been able to sort of start making this work. We've now grown over about 4,000 pounds of food that we've donated to the campus food pantry, and we're hoping to expand the program. So we won this award. I guess this is being recorded, so I shouldn't say this. Honestly, so I nominated us for this award specifically so it would get me a meeting with the president of the university to be like, I need some help, support us. So that meeting's coming up in October. I'll let you know how it goes. But all right, so that brings us to what I wanted to talk with y'all about tonight. I may drive y'all crazy because I might, I think to really do this, I might need to play around on the computer a little bit, but I think we can make it work. What we started doing, and Daniel was a part of this, is we started mapping our farm, digitally mapping in Google Earth. And I'll what I want to do is kind of walk through sort of the steps we took and then show you some of the maps we're making. And this is still a work in progress, but I'm really very proud of the work that we've done and impressed. And I've learned a lot from this. And I've discovered we have some really cool stuff on campus that I didn't even know, we were growing. A lot of this came from us kind of analyzing our campus farm store. For those of y'all that have been to campus, we have a really great store where we sell student-grown fruits and vegetables. what we're discovering though is that our customers don't 100% know that like this is grown by students, and they don't 100% know exactly like what it is that we're offering. I mean, even simple stuff. So like a lot of times when we put out like satsumas, customers will complain and they'll say like this orange is like saggy and like rotten. And so, instead of seeing this as a challenge, we thought, well, this is an opportunity to like, maybe put out additional educational materials, maybe get a chance to like talk with the customers a little bit more, maybe put out some marketing materials. And so we also talked with some of the staff that have managed the farms for generations. Some of the staff is, in their 60s and 70s, and so they've been around for a long time and have a lot of institutional knowledge. And we found out that there's stuff that we're growing on campus that we're not even bringing to the farm store because they're like, if they can't even figure out satsumas, there's no way they're going to be able to figure out like, limequats and bergamot and things like that. So I was like, we got to fix this. We're an agricultural college. There's so much opportunity here. And so Dr. David Edens and I, that Dave right there, we started a farm to table class. So he's in essentially a professor in the nutrition department, but he's a trained chef. He's taught at culinary schools before. And so we're like, okay, we have the perspective of the chef, we have the perspective of the farmer with Dr. Fox. Let's create a class where we can kind of talk about this. And so in this class, so this is, we don't wear this stuff every day. This is for graduation. This is one of our students that was in the class. And for graduation, he made us these these lanyards out of the citrus from our farm. So in this class, we said like, all right, well, let's work on figuring out how to better, market the citrus and the fruits that we have. Let's figure out how to better kind of connect all the amazing things we have to the community. So, in total, like on campus, we have 130 acres, but if you look at all the other farms we have, we're growing on about 400 acres. And so my first question was like, okay, well, let's go look at the maps. There are no maps. And I was like, okay, well, where's the list of what we're growing? The cultivars, and there's not really a list. So it turns out that most all of this knowledge of what we're growing is in the head of Dr. Greg Partita and one of the long standing staff members of the farm, Juan Robledo. And so this is when the project started getting, a little bit more complicated, but also really exciting, is that we asked both of these people if they would come out and show us around and help us start, figuring out what exactly we're growing on campus. And to be fair, there is a map. When I asked Dr. Partita about this, he handed me this. And I said, well, gosh, like, this hasn't been updated in a while, has it? And he said, oh, no. This is the exact map that was given to me when I started here in 1980. So I was like, okay, we got some work to do. So what I'm hoping I can do, we'll see how well this works, is show you some of the work that we've done. There is a block of citrus on main campus that includes primarily Valencia oranges, primarily another block that's primarily navel oranges, and then there's an experimental citrus block. So if we can open Google Maps and I can play around with it, that'd be great. If not, we'll do our best. And y'all let me know if I'm like starting to go too long on any of this. There's a lot to show you. I'm not going to show you everything, but I thought I'd kind of just show you some highlights. Yeah, we can actually even just share that. Yeah, that way we don't have to. Yeah, great. All right. Is it okay if I use the mouse? Thank you. Sure. I don't mean to kick you out. All right. All right. So let me zoom out a little bit so y'all can see. Exactly where we are. So again, for those of y'all that haven't been to Cal Poly Pomona, um, we're right kind of where San Bernardino County, Los Angeles County, Riverside County, somewhat Orange County all kind of collide, right where the 57 and the 10 meet. Um, and we still have, a lot of our original farmland. Of course, some of it has been developed, but where all this sort of crazy stuff is where we started mapping out our citrus groves. Down here is where the Arabian Horse Center is, a lot of pastures, but up here in this corner is our citrus grove. I will 100% tell you, I was incredibly naive as to how long this would take. I was like, we can go out there for an afternoon, we'll knock it out, and it'll be fine. This has taken about 2 years now, and we're not done yet. So let me show you kind of some of the things that we've been looking at, and then I'll show you the subtropical block as well. So again, we're primarily looking at sort of navels here, Valencias here, and then this experimental citrus. There's things here that I think are pretty interesting. And what we're trying to do is essentially make it so that um, it's as straightforward as possible with images and so what we had to do was go tree by tree because a lot of this again is not recorded, and we're basically on tours with Dr. Partita and the farm staff, um, trying to figure out exactly what we are looking at. And Dr. Partita has said that some of this is very good and some of it needs work. So if any of y'all see anything where you're like, wait a minute, that photo does not match up with what it says, that's fine. I think there's still some mistakes we have to do. Um, let me see. Some of the things that I was really impressed with that I didn't know we had um, were things like there are some rare grapefruits in here, which I'm not sure if we have labeled right now or not. Um, and then I was impressed to see that we had bergamot. And again, all this fruit just gets it's it's not all of this fruit, but some of these things that are sort of rare and unique end up getting, for lack of a better word, wasted. Um, and my wife, um, owns a farm to table like confection company, and she was like, "You can just bring me all of it." She's made bergamot extract and made marshmallows out of that. Um, she's used the kumquats and limequats and all sorts of other things. Um, let me see. And so this was sort of step one, was just figuring out like what we even had. Because again, the hope was that we can start bringing this information and these products to the public. What we're hoping to start doing, and what we will certainly invite y'all out for if we can pull it off, is maybe this February having like a citrus festival out in the groves. Because that's when primarily all of this stuff is available, and we can just put a table out, pick some fruit, and eat it. As I mentioned, there is certainly like exciting stuff here, but there's some things that we need to work on. You know, I think the last of these trees, the most recent planting was in the 1990s. And so that's a long time ago now. When we talk about trying to sort of refresh our groves and make sure they're at optimal production. Some of these are, of course, much, much, much older than that. Also, there's a lot of top work on some of these trees that like we did not maintain, and now they're this sort of bizarre zombie citrus creature. Like, it was once Valencia, and then they grafted some kind of blood orange on it, but they didn't like continue to prune the Valencia down. So it's like now, again, primarily Valencia. And of course, we figured this stuff out when we were going tree to tree, and we were like, okay, what is this? And like you see like six different things coming off of it, and you're like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. Like I can identify each one of these, and like maybe it's not supposed to be a multi-grafted thing. I think it just, maybe a class project that like went awry. So, Daniel can tell you that like, I mean, I got calls from Daniel when they were trying to map some of this, and he was like, "What do you want me to do here?" Like, this thing is like, it's not anything. It's like eight different things, and it's, overgrown. But we did learn a lot. We've got a number of different blood oranges, and what we're hoping is that we can go into the farm store and not just sort of, offer blood oranges, but say like, hey, these are moras and these are really good for like fresh eating. Whereas this other blood orange is primarily meant for like sangria, for juice, for cocktails. And do a better job of marketing and showing the public, what we're growing and kind of how to appreciate it. Let me see here. I'll show y'all. We also started mapping our subtropical block, and this had zero map. This, I feel like I'm like airing too much of our dirty laundry here. Like the folks that have been here longer, for us to create this map, they literally like took out a piece of paper and started just like writing stuff down. And we're like, wait, that was that, and that we got it from that nursery. So again, I mean, it's really great that that institutional knowledge is still available, and that they were, we're incredibly grateful that they came back and showed us what it was. Because I just do not, have the expertise to be able to identify some of this stuff down to cultivar. So this is where we're growing things like guava, mango, cherimoya. What's happening here is that this is a south-facing slope, and so it's essentially a frost-free pocket here on campus. And what we need to do now-ish, what we started doing, because we were able to say like, okay, that's obviously a guava, that's obviously a mango, but we need to come back, when it's fruiting to be able to, 100% identify what the exact cultivar is. If any of y'all are curious and like joining us on this, let me know and I'll try and keep y'all updated. And if we're having like a day where we're out there, you're more than welcome to come out. Um, And we're going to continue this. The idea is that, again, so like we know that it's one of these varieties of cherimoya, but we need to like look at the fruit to confirm exactly which one. Um, and some of this stuff is just not, the star fruit is still in good shape, is still producing fruit, but we have a Australian finger lime here that, oh no, this is longan. So yeah, I mean, some of these trees are a little bit old now. Some of them have not been managed very well. Um, but they're still producing fruit, and I think there's still a really great opportunity to like, outreach these things to the public. Um, but I mean, this is our Australian finger lime. You can tell it's not looking very good. I think there's also now is the time to really start, you know, updating this and planting um, some new trees, some new cultivars, etc. There's some coffee back here as well. This is not our primary coffee orchard, but this is sort of some older plantings. And then some loquats. But again, the idea is that, you know, when I retire, hopefully, this will just be publicly available and there won't be any of this sort of mad scramble to kind of figure out what exactly it is that's growing on Cal Poly Pomona's campus. Um, so that's what we're hopeful for. And what we're going to do from here is just ideally, hopefully, continue doing this um, tree by tree. Um, so we've got, you know, where y'all were last year, we need to input um, the coffee and the dragon fruit, make sure that all of that is in one place, right? That it's not just sort of in these, paper maps that one person has access to. So this is, the coffee that y'all were at last year, um, some of the avocados, and then, this is the older dragon fruit planting here. So I feel like this is a good tool. It's not the prettiest map in the world, but we thought by using Google Earth that that would be something that would be really simple for people to access. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get all of this updated and make sure it's correct. Dr. Pertita is a great resource and he's made sure to kind of double check our work. Um, so again, these are some of the varieties that we know we have, but we kind of just again have to kind of go back to the guavas when they're when they're all fruiting, the mangoes, and just 100% double check that we know exactly which tree is which. With some of the citrus, we don't we don't know. Like even when we looked at the fruit, we couldn't tell what it was. And so we're talking with some folks at UC Riverside to maybe do some DNA testing on it to try and find out exactly what it is. Um, and so let me show you all. Stage 2 of this was to kind of start doing some better marketing materials. And so the students also worked on this. So I'll show you some of this that they made. We made some t-shirts out of this. But, again, kind of instead of just sort of putting out like mandarins and saying like, here are mandarins, we thought, let's talk about specific flavor profiles. Again, we're working with Dr. Dave Edens, who's nutrition and food science. So talking about sort of when they're available. They also started making recipes and they have recipe cards. And again, we're hoping to kind of start putting this stuff in the farm store and then also in the poly pantry that I mentioned. Um, and then there's convenience stores on campus for students to purchase things, and we're starting to put our produce in there as well, so that it's not just, canned and sort of packaged items in the convenience stores, but that students have access to fresh fruits and vegetables as well. And again, this was basically like, a class project. It kind of is at the point where it needs to maybe expand a little bit. So we're trying to see if we can figure out how to make that work. Um, but again, we basically went from maps like this to, um, the Google Earth maps that you saw before. And then we presented some of this at the LA County Fair as well. So that was kind of the final exam for the students, was to go to the LA County Fair and talk about the work they did on this project. So I was really impressed with what the students did. I thought that, um, it was, of course, this is a work in progress, but we've been able to discover a lot of things that I didn't know. I'm now one of the most senior members of my department, and I had no idea some of the stuff that we had on campus. Um, and also, yeah, some of the, if not problems, I guess challenges that we need to work on. Um, and yeah, I'd love to, now that we have a better idea of what we have in the citrus groves, I'd love to show you around. And if we do get a chance to, um, have a citrus festival, if not this winter, maybe next winter, I'll definitely make sure that you all are invited. I'd love to host you and show you, all the things that we found, and maybe get y'all's advice on, what we should do to refresh some of these things. Some of these cultivars of citrus are not necessarily, some of them are just old, and so um, it's time to kind of rethink what we're growing and, get an idea of what the future of agriculture in Southern California and future of citrus will look like. So um, I think with that, I might wrap it up so that there's time for questions. But if y'all need me to clarify anything, or if y'all want me to show you anything in particular, let me know. Um, I'm not quite sure if this map is like ready to distribute. So if you're interested in that, come and talk to me, but um, I can give you some resources, but we still have some corrections to make. So, all right. I think I'll stop there, and y'all let me know what questions you have. Yeah, so the question was about Spadra Ranch, and since the map is up, I will show you. Um, Spadra Ranch is probably our largest acreage that's really close to campus. That's where I teach a lot of my classes. Um, and it's about 130 acres. Um, so this area over here, just south, sorry, this is kind of, so again, this is sort of main campus over here, and then about, a mile away is Spadra Ranch. This is where we grow, our pumpkins for the pumpkin festival that's coming up. This is where we grow all the, vegetables that you see in the farm store. There is a little bit of citrus here. Um, we had a deciduous block back here. It's honestly kind of in rough shape, so that kind of needs a refresh as well. And we also grow alfalfa and grains and oats and things for the animals. Again, this is where I primarily teach my classes. You know, we are going to have like a soil quality lab next week. We're going to have like an irrigation audit lab in a couple weeks out here. So yes, Squadra Farm is thankfully still in operation. Um, in 2016, they were going to pave a lot of it over, and the students saved the farm. So I can, go into that story if y'all want me to. One of the main things about Spadra Farm that's news is that this 9-acre field here we've now certified organic, and so that's USDA certified, and that's been a good learning opportunity for students as well to kind of learn how to manage an organic farm as well as keep up with the paperwork and the record keeping. And we're hoping to expand what we're doing out there. Right now, we're primarily growing vegetables. We're doing some research. We're growing some pumpkins. We don't have any fruit trees yet, but I think that's probably next for our organic acreage. We've been talking about converting some of this field into a community garden for the entire Pomona community. As you can imagine, that would be a pretty monumental effort. So we're still trying to figure out how to make that work. One of the main things about this farm is that there is one tiny little bathroom in this tiny little building here. And so, bringing the public out, some of y'all have been out to Spadra Farm recently when I did like a field day out there in like 2018, 2019. But there's no electricity. So we got some fundraising to do and some infrastructure to build out, but this may be where the agrivoltaics comes in. We're thinking about putting up solar panels in this field and growing vegetables under there, and then maybe that can be the electricity that powers this building and provides, some opportunity to bring the public in. About the farm to table class? Yeah. It's a good question. So the question was about sort of the farm to table program that we're doing. And Michelle mentioned that she's part of a USDA funded program to help with that as well. So this was kind of a natural outreach of the urban agriculture program that we helped establish. So a lot of what it does is it provides opportunities for students to work with government agencies, nonprofit organizations, farmers markets, to get them to have hands-on experiences with urban farmers. And the grant helps pay for that, basically. What ended up happening was that we would interact with these nonprofit organizations in class, and they would say, "We love your students. Like, can they come back out to work?" And my students would be like, "I love this organization. Can I come back out to work?" But then when it came time to figure out how to pay for it, usually these organizations didn't have the funds to pay the students, and my students couldn't afford to volunteer. And so I went out and got a grant from U.S. Department of Agriculture to help make that happen. Now, I will admit, I wrote the grant in January 2020, and I got the grant in May 2020. And if you recall, a lot changed between January and May of 2020. So we've had to adapt. Things are getting a little better now, but in the beginning of the project, because of the pandemic, I even remember calling the USDA and saying, "Thank you for the money, but everything I proposed, I can't do anymore because of the pandemic." And I said, "We'll just figure it out." So we did a lot of online projects, and we did some mapping. We mapped every urban farm and community garden in Los Angeles County. We did some data management with farmers market organization to try and help them figure out how to better serve underserved communities. And so, it's kind of an evolving project right now. The class, we created a class from this. Again, Chef Edens and I, we're basically trying to get um, a mixed cohort of students to come together and kind of learn from each other. Oftentimes on college campuses, like if you're a nutrition student, you just learn about nutrition. You never learn about how the fruits and vegetables are grown. And then if you're a plant science student, you never really learn about, how those fruits and vegetables are utilized after they're harvested. And so, we go over everything from, like a crash course in farming to a crash course in cooking, um, and really talk about how to make this work. And again, we're working with campus dining on this very thing right now, and it's challenging because um, when you work with like a big food provider like Sodexo, you can literally just go online at any time of night. They pull up like a big sheet of the billions of things I have available. You click, 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 and it comes tomorrow. Whereas with the farm to table, what we're doing with the campus farm and campus dining, we have to talk to them like 3 or 4 months in advance and be like, what do you need 3 or 4 months from now? And they're like, I don't know. Like, that's 3 or 4 months from now. We're like, we need to put it in the ground now. Or, vice versa. We can tell them like, hey, the figs are late this year. Can you completely change your menu and get that menu for like 2 months from now? So it's, we're adapting and trying to learn from each other, but that's kind of what the class teaches as well, is sort of how to establish these relationships and think about things differently. We talk a lot about sort of seasonality and sort of, when fruits come in, um, when they're not available. And, there's a big learning curve. Um, one of the chefs was telling me like in January that like they wanted like to do caprese salads, and I was like, you're gonna have to wait about 5 to 6 months for that. So, um, but it's been a lot of fun. I think the students enjoy it, and it's gotten us an opportunity to kind of connect with the community as well. So, and hopefully we'll get a chance to continue doing it. So far, everything I've mentioned is very like much about opportunities for students. I mean, one thing to consider is that Cal Poly Pomona is a public university, and like every single class is open to the public, and you can sign up through what I think is called Extended University. They may have changed the name, but if you're curious about taking a class at Cal Poly Pomona, um, let me know. We'd love to have you. Any member of the public can take a class at the university. So um, I'd be happy to send you information on that. Yeah, so the question was about, are there any incentives, subsidies, grants, things like that, for installing agrivoltaics? Um, there are starting to be. Um, I think for a long time, not for a long time, it's just it hasn't been on the government's radar. But I mean, I think especially in the state of California, what they're realizing is that, they've talked about how many like, millions of housing units they want to build. They've talked about, making sure that we're fossil fuel free by 2030 or something. And they've talked about how they want to preserve 30% of the land for like natural resources and just for like wild lands. And these are all very good goals, but they start conflicting with each other. Especially when we start talking about like, well, what's left? What's left is farmland, right? So are we just going to get rid of all the farmland? So they're starting to realize that ideas like agrivoltaics, where you can start combining some of these goals, are worth putting resources into. So I will admit that, like off the top of my head, I don't know of any existing government programs, but I do know that they're starting to be, and that, if you give me a little bit of time, I can look some up and see if they're, what stage they're in, if they're already, providing support, or if they're just in sort of the listening stages. But I think it's coming. If Yeah, so the question was about bees and beehives. And yes, we do have an apiary and apiary program, and we teach both like an introductory beekeeping class as well as we're starting to teach a more advanced one. Um, at some point, we're having regular like public workshops, and we're hoping to put those on again. I will admit that this is not a program that I run, but it is through a professor in my department. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. I can connect you with Dr. Soper. But have y'all, like Sky or Michelle or Daniel or Jose, have y'all taken beekeeping yet? Okay. You took it? So was it a good class? Did you learn how to keep bees?
So for the introductory class on bee science, everyone gets their own hive, and you manage it, you take care of it throughout the semester, and then you learn about different kinds of bees, native bees a little bit, and then you know kind of some of the pests like burrow mite, how to do checks for those, um, how to replace queen if you need to. So everything about the bees and harvesting honey and how we do that. It's all covered through this program. Uh, and so at any given time, there's probably uh, ranging between, I want to say like 15 hives to maybe 30. And that changes depending on like the season and where the bees are at. And uh, a little bit of it's new because Dr. Soper just took that program over. And so they're in the process of building up the bee colonies again, replacing some equipment, but it's an excellent program. I don't know if anyone has questions about bee science. I'll give it back to Dr. Fox.
Any other questions? Do we have a problem with water? Yes, everybody has a problem with water. But yeah, no, it is a good question. Um, um, so the citrus groves that I showed you are on reclaimed water, like on purple pipes. Um, and then the Spadra farm is on well water. And so, the purple pipes have done well. I think the thing that can be a little concerning is that every once in a while they'll just sort of shut it off. They usually give us fair warning, but like this summer when it was like 100 and something, they just like shut the water off without warning. And like we're we we don't have redundancy. Even though we've got well water on one of our farms and purple pipe water on the other, we don't have any way of like connecting it. And so we were able to sort of make it work, but it was tenuous for a while. Um, and then with the well water, the thing that's coming down is that, because of the new groundwater regulations, we're going to have to start doing a lot more reporting, a lot more, um, going to meetings and making sure that we're complying with those new groundwater regulations, which honestly will be a great opportunity for our students to learn and then be able to take that knowledge to other forums and communities. Um, and I think we're also lucky because we're a state institution, and so um, that allows us a little bit more flexibility because than a regular farm would be able to, because we're able to say like we're doing this for education. So we need to keep that in mind too, that like when we're thinking about training our students that what we do on our campus farm may not be exactly what they'll face out there. And so we always need to think about kind of the water restrictions and the water regulations that they'll face. So I'll go here.
I did not. I'm on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a good question about pesticide usage on campus on the acreage that um, we manage. So as I mentioned, just 9 acres of the 400 acres that we manage are certified organic. I know that like with our vegetable production, that even our conventional vegetable production, um, we're spraying pretty minimally. Um, but we still are using pesticides, um, primarily pyrethroids and some neonicotinoids. And does that have an impact on the bees? What we're doing is we're making sure we're following all label requirements, we're making sure we're following all regulations, and we're being really careful about it. And so these are things that we're trying to also teach our students as well, so that they can be, really judicious and making sure they're following all regulations. Um, our farm managers are all PCAs now, so pest control advisors. So the pesticides that we do use, we feel like we're doing it in a responsible manner. But I think there's always, room for, checking ourselves and making sure that there's not other things that we can be doing in addition to that. I think, with citrus, because of Asian citrus psyllid, that's really changed our management over the past generation. I think we're probably using, more pesticides now because of that. Um, and I think like a lot of citrus growers, to some degree, that's a little frustrating because, a generation ago before Asian citrus psyllid, like we had really dialed in a really very good integrated pest management system where we didn't have to rely so much on pesticides. And now that we're using pesticides pretty regularly for Asian citrus psyllid control, we're starting to see all these like secondary pests that we hadn't seen in, 50, 60 years, like all of a sudden come back because we've kind of broken that balance. But it is an important, Asian citrus psyllid is a very important pest to try and keep contained. So we're following all the rules and regulations on that, which includes, regular pesticide sprays. No, it's a good question, about like what are we doing, to manage Asian citrus psyllid and citrus greening disease. Primarily we have done a lot of research over the years on Asian citrus psyllid, primarily related to biological control agents that can help suppress the populations. Um, and a lot of outreach to the urban public about Asian citrus psyllid and making sure that, backyard growers and folks with like one citrus tree in their backyard are aware of it and, look out for it. But we haven't implemented any really intense high technology on our farms yet. We are doing drone projects with aerospace engineering department, but that's primarily related to like nutrient management, soil management, looking for drought stress through like infrared spectrometry through drones. So, but we have started talking about maybe doing some pest management with the drones as well. So we'll see. It may be what's next. Okay, one more question. Yeah. Oh yeah, questions about lanternfly. Yeah. Um, so we have, we've worked a lot with California Department of Food and Agriculture as well as with UC Cooperative Extension on projects related to Asian citrus psyllid. Um, the CDFA has a rearing greenhouse for the parasitic wasp that they are releasing regularly. So that's happening on Cal Poly Pomona's campus. They often employ our students to help out with that. We haven't started getting involved in lanternfly yet, so we'll see. We shall see. Yeah, I mean there is an opportunity to we're in an area where there's a lot of new novel species coming in, and so we're doing some work on that. I was contracted by CDFA to start looking at are there efforts to control invasive species working, and so they've hired a whole bunch of us. I'm primarily looking at like how does this relate to like urban farms and community gardens. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think that they have a lot of work to do. CDFA has a lot of work to do related to outreach. We would do some outreach, and it was astounding how little people knew about not just Asian citrus psyllid, but what was even growing in their backyard. So, and again, I'd say that that's an opportunity for us to be doing more and to through master gardeners, through cooperative extension, and perhaps if there's a role for Cal Poly Pomona, especially with our students, for us to get involved in that outreach. So, all right, I think we have to get to the tasting. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Fox. Thanks, Cal Poly students. Thanks, members and guests.